The glass door shattered, shards raining down on the sidewalk as Karen stormed out of stitch and seam tailors, her face flushed with fury. She had just spent the better part of an hour berating the hapless owner, a mild-mannered man named Amir, for his unacceptable delay in completing her custom suit. "This is an outrage," she screeched, drawing the attention of passers-by. "I have a very important event tonight, and you've ruined everything. Do you have any idea who I am?" Amir, cowering behind the counter, stammered an apology, explaining that there had been a family emergency that had thrown his schedule off. But Karen was having none of it. "I don't care about your excuses," she spat. "This is unacceptable. I demand you refund my money and have the suit ready by this evening, or I'll make sure you're out of business." With that, she stormed off, leaving the trail of shattered glass and a terrified Amr in her wake. Little did Karen know, her outburst had been witnessed by a young journalist named Alex, who had been grabbing a coffee across the street. Intrigued by the spectacle, he decided to investigate further, approaching the trembling Tailor. "Excuse me, sir, are you all right?" Alex asked, concern etched on his face. Amr looked up at him, his eyes brimming with tears. I'm fine, I suppose," he stammered. "That woman, she's been a nightmare ever since I told her the suit wouldn't be ready in time. I tried to explain, but she just wouldn't listen." Alex nodded sympathetically. "I saw the whole thing. That was quite a display. Do you know who she is?" Amr shook his head. "No, I've never seen her before. She just came in a few days ago, demanding a custom suit for some event tonight. I told her it would take at least a week, but she insisted I have it ready by today." Alex's brow furrowed. "That's rather unreasonable. What happened to cause the delay?" "My brother-in-law, he's been very ill," Amr explained, his voice quivering. "I had to take time off to be with him and my sister. I tried to call the woman and explain, but she refused to listen." Alex's expression softened. "I see. That's a difficult situation. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. But if you don't mind me asking, why didn't you just tell her the truth about the delay?" Amr sighed heavily. "I was afraid she would react like this. She seemed like the kind of person who wouldn't care about my personal problems. I was just trying to avoid this kind of confrontation." Alex nodded in understanding. "I see. Well, I'm a journalist, and I'd like to hear more about your story, if you're willing to talk." Amr's eyes widened. "A journalist? You mean, you want to write about this?" Alex gave him a reassuring smile. "Only if you're comfortable with it. I think your side of the story deserves to be heard." Amr hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, I'll tell you what happened. But please, don't use my name. I don't want to attract any more attention from people like her." Alex agreed, and the two men began to discuss the events that had led to this confrontation, unaware that their conversation would soon take an unexpected turn. As Amr recounted the details of his personal crisis to Alex, the journalist listened intently, his heart going out to the beleaguered Tailor. It was clear that Amr had been through a difficult ordeal, and that Karen's entitled behavior had only added to his distress. "My brother-in-law, he's been battling a rare form of cancer," Amr explained, his voice low and somber. "He's been in and out of the hospital for weeks, and my sister has been by his side the entire time. I've been trying to keep the shop running, but it's been a struggle." Alex nodded sympathetically. "That must have been incredibly stressful. I can understand why you were hesitant to confront your customer about the delay. No one should have to deal with that kind of behavior on top of a family crisis." Amr sighed heavily. "I just wanted to get the suit done and send her on her way. I didn't expect her to react so violently. She's the first customer I've ever had who's acted like that." "Well, unfortunately, people like her are all too common these days," Alex said, shaking his head. "They think they can bully their way through life, never considering the impact their actions have on others." Amr nodded in agreement, It's just so unfair. I'm doing the best I can, and I've never had any other complaints about my work. But she just came in, yelling and demanding, and now look at the mess she's left behind." Alex surveyed the shattered glass and the damage to the storefront, his brow furrowed in concern. "Do you have the means to repair this?" he asked. Amr shook his head dejectedly. "No, not really. I barely have enough to cover the cost of the suit, let alone unexpected repairs. This is going to set me back even further." Alex's expression hardened with determination. "Well, I can't let that stand. This isn't right, and I'm going to make sure your story is heard." Amr's eyes widened in alarm. "Wait, you said you wouldn't use my name. I don't want any more trouble." Alex held up a reassuring hand. "Don't worry, I won't use your name. But I do want to write about this incident and make sure that people understand the real story behind it. This woman's behavior is unacceptable, and she needs to be held accountable." Amr hesitated, clearly torn. I don't know. I just want to put this all behind me and focus on my family." "I understand your hesitation," Alex said, "but think about it this way. By sharing your story, you might be able to prevent someone else from going through a similar ordeal. And who knows, it could even lead to some support for your shop and your family." Amr chewed on his lip, contemplating Alex's words. After a moment, he nodded slowly. "All right, I'll tell you what happened. But please, be discreet. I don't want any more trouble." Alex grinned, already formulating the story in his mind. "You have my word. Now, tell me everything." As Amr began to recount the details of his harrowing encounter with Karen, the young journalist listened intently, his determination to expose her entitled behavior only growing stronger. Little did they know, their conversation was about to take an unexpected turn. As Amr recounted the details of his encounter with the irate customer, Alex jotted down notes, his brow furrowed in concentration. He could feel the injustice of the situation weighing heavily on him, and he was determined to use his platform to shine a light on Karen's entitled behavior. "So, let me get this straight," Alex said, pausing to review his notes. "You told this woman, Karen, that the suit would take at least a week to complete, but she insisted you have it ready in just a few days. And when you explained that you had a family emergency that had thrown your schedule off, she completely disregarded your situation and proceeded to berate you and threaten your business." Amr nodded solemnly. "That's exactly what happened. I tried to reason with her, to explain the circumstances, but she just wouldn't listen. All she cared about was getting her suit on time, regardless of what was going on in my personal life." Alex shook his head in disbelief. "That's just despicable. No one should have to endure that kind of treatment, especially not when they're dealing with a family crisis. I can't even imagine how stressful that must have been for you." Amr sighed heavily. "It was, to be honest. I was already feeling overwhelmed, trying to balance the shop and be there for my sister and brother-in-law. And then to have this woman come in, screaming and threatening me, it was just too much." Alex's expression softened with empathy. "I can understand why you were hesitant to confront her about the delay. You were trying to avoid this kind of confrontation, and you were probably worried about the potential consequences if you stood up to her." Amr nodded. "Exactly. I just wanted to get the suit done and send her on her way, but she wouldn't have it. And now look at the mess she's left behind." He gestured to the shattered glass and the damaged storefront. Alex's jaw tightened with determination. "Well, I'm not going to let her get away with this. This kind of behavior needs to be called out and addressed, and I think your story is the perfect way to do it." Amr's eyes widened with alarm. "Wait, you're not going to use my name, are you?" "I don't want any more trouble, especially not from someone like her." Alex held up a reassuring hand. "Don't worry, I won't use your name. I promised I wouldn't, and I intend to keep that promise. But I do want to write about this incident and expose the entitled behavior of this woman, Karen. I think it's important for people to understand the real story behind what happened here. Amr chewed on his lip, considering Alex's proposal. I don't know. I just want to move on from this and focus on my family. I don't want to risk any more confrontation or trouble. I understand your hesitation, Alex said, but think about it this way. By sharing your story, you might be able to prevent someone else from going through a similar ordeal. And who knows, it could even lead to some support for your shop and your family. Amr remained silent for a moment, weighing the pros and cons in his mind. Finally, he let out a resigned sigh. All right, I'll tell you what happened. But please, be discreet. I don't want any more attention on this. Alex grinned, already envisioning the powerful story he would craft. You have my word. Now, tell me everything. As Amr began to recount the details of his encounter with Karen, Alex listened intently, his determination to expose her entitled behavior only growing stronger. Little did they know, their conversation was about to take an unexpected turn. As Amr recounted the details of his confrontation with Karen, Alex listened intently, his pen moving rapidly across the pages of his notebook. The more he heard, the more his determination to expose her entitled behavior grew. This was a story that needed to be told, and he was determined to make sure it reached the right audience. So let me get this straight, Alex said, pausing to review his notes. You explained to Karen that there had been a family emergency that had thrown your schedule off, but she flat out refused to listen. She just kept berating you and threatening your business, completely disregarding the personal crisis you were dealing with. Amr nodded solemnly. That's exactly what happened. I tried to reason with her, to make her understand, but she was having none of it. All she cared about was getting her suit on time, regardless of what was going on in my life. Alex shook his head in disbelief. That's just despicable. No one should have to endure that kind of treatment, especially not when they're dealing with a family crisis. I can't even imagine how stressful that must have been for you. Amr sighed heavily. It was, to be honest. I was already feeling overwhelmed, trying to balance the shop and be there for my sister and brother-in-law. And then to have this woman come in, screaming and threatening me, it was just too much. Alex's expression softened with empathy. I can understand why you were hesitant to confront her about the delay. You were trying to avoid this kind of confrontation, and you were probably worried about the potential consequences if you stood up to her. Amr nodded. Exactly. I just wanted to get the suit done and send her on her way, but she wouldn't have it. And now look at the mess she's left behind. He gestured to the shattered glass and the damaged storefront. Alex's jaw tightened with determination. Well, I'm not going to let her get away with this. This kind of behavior needs to be called out and addressed, and I think your story is the perfect way to do it. Amr's eyes widened with alarm. Wait, you're not going to use my name, are you? I don't want any more trouble, especially not from someone like her. Alex held up a reassuring hand. Don't worry, I won't use your name. I promised I wouldn't, and I intend to keep that promise. But I do want to write out this incident and expose the entitled behavior of this woman, Karen. I think it's important for people to understand the real story behind what happened here. Amr chewed on his lip, considering Alex's proposal. I don't know. I just want to move on from this and focus on my family. I don't want to risk any more confrontation or trouble. I understand your hesitation, Alex said, but think about it this way. By sharing your story, you might be able to prevent someone else from going through a similar ordeal. And who knows, it could even lead to some support for your shop and your family. Amr remained silent for a moment, weighing the pros and cons in his mind. Finally, he let out a resigned sigh. All right, I'll tell you what happened. But please, be discreet. I don't want any more attention on this. Alex grinned, already envisioning the powerful story he would craft. You have my word. Now, tell me everything. As Amr began to recount the details of his encounter with Karen, Alex listened intently, his determination to expose her entitled behavior only growing stronger. Little did they know, their conversation was about to take an unexpected turn. Just then, the sound of a car engine roaring to life outside caught their attention, and Alex glanced out the window to see a sleek, black sedan peeling away from the curb. His brow furrowed as he watched it disappear down the street, a strange feeling of unease settling in the pit of his stomach. "Did you see that?" he asked Amr, gesturing towards the retreating car. Amr nodded, his own expression mirroring Alex's concern. "Yes, I did. That's odd. I wonder where they're headed in such a hurry." Alex's eyes narrowed as he contemplated the possibility of a connection between the car's abrupt departure and the incident with Karen. "I'm not sure, but I have a feeling it might be related to our conversation." Amr's eyes widened with alarm. "You don't think she's coming back, do you?" "I can't handle another confrontation like that. Not right now." Alex held up a hand to calm the tailor's fears. "Don't worry, I'll make sure you're safe. But I think we should keep an eye out, just in case." As the two men stood there, uncertainty and tension hanging in the air, they both couldn't help but wonder what unexpected developments might be on the horizon. The minutes ticked by intense silence as Amir and Alex watched the street, both on high alert for any signs of Karen's return. The shattered glass from the earlier confrontation still littered the sidewalk, a stark reminder of the woman's volatile temper. "Do you think she'll come back?" Amr asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Alex pursed his lips, considering the question. "It's hard to say for sure. Based on her reaction, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to retaliate in some way. But I'll stay here with you until I'm certain you're safe." Amr nodded gratefully, his shoulders visibly relaxing a bit. "I appreciate that. I don't know what I'd do if she came back and caused more trouble. I've had enough drama for one day." "I understand," Alex replied, placing a reassuring hand on the tailor's arm. "But try not to worry too much. If she does show up, I'll make sure she doesn't do anything else to upset you or your shop." Amr managed a small, appreciative smile. "Thank you. It means a lot to have someone on my side, for once." The two men fell back into a tense silence, their eyes scanning the street for any sign of movement. The minutes ticked by, and as time passed, Amr's anxiety seemed to diminish slightly. Suddenly, a loud commotion from outside caught their attention. Amr's head snapped towards the door, his eyes wide with fear, but Alex held up a calming hand. "Wait here," the journalist instructed, carefully peering out the shattered glass. What he saw next made his jaw drop in disbelief. There, in the middle of the street, stood Karen, her face flushed with rage as she confronted a well-dressed man who appeared to be her husband. The two were engaged in a heated argument, with Karen gesticulating wildly and the man trying, albeit unsuccessfully, to calm her down. Alex watched, transfixed, as the drama unfolded before his eyes. He couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for the man, who seemed to be bearing the brunt of Karen's explosive temper. Just then, the man turned, and Alex's eyes widened in recognition. He would have known that face anywhere. It was his own brother, Jack, a respected journalist who had made a name for himself with his investigative reporting. "Well, this just got a lot more interesting," Alex murmured, his mind racing with the implications of this unexpected twist. Amr, sensing the shift in Alex's demeanor, leaned forward anxiously. "What is it? What's happening out there?" Alex turned to the tailor, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. "It seems our friend Karen has found herself in a bit of a predicament, and her antagonist just happens to be my own brother." Amr's brow furrowed in confusion. "Your brother? What does that have to do with anything?" Alex grinned, his mind already spinning with the possibilities. "Oh, this could be the break we've been looking for. Come on, let's go see what's going on." Before Amr could protest, Alex was already striding towards the door, determined to uncover the truth behind this unexpected turn of events. As he stepped out into the street, he couldn't help but wonder what other surprises might be in store. As Alex stepped out onto the street, he could feel his heart pounding in his chest. The sight of his brother, Jack, engaged in a heated argument with the entitled Karen was both shocking and intriguing. Cautiously, he approached the pair, Amr trailing behind him, his apprehension evident in his every step. "Jack?" Alex called out, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. Both Karen and Jack turned towards him, their expressions shifting from anger to surprise. "Alex?" Jack replied, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What are you doing here?" Before Alex could respond, Karen's attention had already shifted back to Jack, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Wait, you two know each other?" she demanded, her voice dripping with accusation. Jack held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Karen, please, let's not make a scene here. This is my brother, Alex. I was just." "Your brother?" Karen interrupted, her voice rising in pitch. "So this is all just some kind of setup, isn't it? You're trying to humiliate me, aren't you?" Alex stepped forward, his expression cautious but determined. "Karen, I can assure you that this is not a setup. I happened to be in the area when I witnessed your earlier confrontation with the tailor. I was simply trying to offer him some support." Karen's gaze darted between the two brothers, her suspicion palpable. "I don't believe you. This is all part of some elaborate scheme, isn't it? Well, I won't be the butt of your little joke." Jack reached out to her, his voice low and soothing. "Karen, please, calm down. I'm not trying to do anything to you. I was just trying to." "Don't touch me," Karen shrieked, recoiling from his touch. "I know exactly what you're up to, and I won't stand for it. I'm going to make sure you both pay for this." With that, she turned on her heel and stormed off, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Alex and Jack exchanged a bewildered glance, both unsure of what had just transpired. "What the hell was that all about?" Alex asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. Jack shook his head, his expression a mix of exasperation and concern. "I honestly have no idea. Karen and I were just discussing a personal matter when you showed up. I had no idea you were involved in this whole thing." Amir, who had been standing silently by, finally spoke up. "So, she's your wife?" Jack nodded, his gaze shifting to the tailor. "Yes, unfortunately. And it seems she's managed to get herself caught up in some kind of altercation with you as well." Amir let out a weary sigh. "Yes, that's an understatement. She came in, yelling and threatening my business because I couldn't complete her suit on time. I tried to explain the situation, but she wouldn't listen." Jack's expression darkened with empathy. "I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. Karen can be challenging, to say the least. But I had no idea she was involved in something like this." Alex stepped forward, his notebook in hand. "Well, it seems we've stumbled upon quite the interesting story here. And now that your wife is involved, Jack, I think we have an opportunity to really shed some light on this whole situation." Jack's brow furrowed in concern. "I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, Alex. Karen is my wife, and I don't want to expose her personal business without her consent." Alex held up a hand. "I understand your hesitation, but hear me out. This isn't just about Karen's behavior towards the tailor. It's about a broader pattern of entitlement and disrespect that needs to be addressed. And who better to shine a light on that than a respected journalist like yourself?" Jack considered his brother's words, his expression pensive. I don't know. This is a sensitive situation, and I'm not sure how Karen would react if I went public with it." Amir, who had been listening intently, spoke up. "If it means holding that woman accountable for her actions, I'm willing to share my story. I'm tired of being pushed around by people like her." Alex turned to the tailor, a grateful smile spreading across his face. "Amir, I can't thank you enough. Your willingness to come forward is exactly what we need to make this story impactful." He then looked back at Jack, his eyes pleading. Come on, Jack. You know as well as I do that people like Karen need to be held accountable. This is an opportunity to make a real difference. Jack sighed heavily, his shoulders sagging in resignation. All right, fine, but we need to be extremely careful with this. I don't want to risk any backlash against Amr or his business. Alex grinned, already mentally formulating the story. Don't worry, we'll handle it with the utmost care. This is going to be a game changer. I can feel it. As the three men stood there, united in their determination to expose Karen's entitled behavior, they couldn't help but wonder what other twists and turns might be in store for them. As the initial shock of the unexpected encounter wore off, Alex, Jack, and Amr found themselves in an unlikely alliance, united by their shared desire to hold Karen accountable for her entitled behavior. All right, let's think this through, Alex said, his brow furrowed in concentration. Amr, you've already agreed to share your story, and that's a great start. But we need to figure out the best way to approach this. Amr nodded, his expression a mix of apprehension and determination. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure she doesn't get away with this. But I don't want to put my business or my family at risk. Jack placed a reassuring hand on the Tailor's shoulder. And we'll make sure that doesn't happen. As a journalist, I have the experience and resources to ensure this is handled properly and with the utmost care. Alex nodded in agreement. Exactly. Jack, your involvement is crucial here. Not only can you lend credibility to the story, but you can also help us navigate any potential pitfalls or backlash. Jack sighed heavily, his gaze drifting towards the direction in which Karen had stormed off. I just hope Karen doesn't make this any more difficult than it already is. She can be unpredictable when she feels threatened. Amir's eyes widened with alarm. You don't think she'll try to retaliate, do you? I can't handle another confrontation like that, not after everything that's happened. Alex quickly intervened, sensing the Tailor's growing anxiety. Don't worry, Amir. We'll make sure you're protected. Jack and I will work together to ensure the story is handled responsibly and with your best interests in mind. Amir nodded, though his expression remained uncertain. All right, I trust you. But please, be discreet. I don't want any more trouble than I've already had to deal with. Jack turned to his brother, his expression serious. Alex, I know you're determined to expose Karen's behavior, but we need to tread carefully here. This could easily backfire if we're not careful. Alex nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. I know, Jack. But I also believe this is an important story that needs to be told. People like Karen need to be held accountable for the way they treat others, especially those who are going through difficult times. Jack chewed on his lip, weighing the pros and cons. You're not wrong, but Karen is my wife. I can't just throw her under the bus without considering the consequences. I get that, Jack, Alex replied, but think about it this way. By exposing her behavior, you might be able to help her see the error of her ways and change for the better. And who knows, it could even strengthen your relationship in the long run. Jack considered his brother's words, his expression thoughtful. I suppose you have a point. But we'll need to be extremely careful in how we approach this. I don't want to do anything that could jeopardize my relationship with Karen or cause more harm than good. Alex nodded firmly. Understood. We'll work together to develop a plan that protects Amr, respects your relationship with Karen, and still holds her accountable. This is going to be a delicate balancing act, but I believe we can pull it off. The three men stood there, united in their determination to right the wrongs that had been committed, each of them bringing their own unique perspective and resources to the table. As they began to hash out the details of their plan, they couldn't help but wonder what other surprises might be in store. After much discussion and careful planning, Alex, Jack, and Amr had finally settled on a strategy to address Karen's entitled behavior. They knew it would be a delicate balancing act, but they were determined to see it through. The first step was to arrange a meeting with Karen, where they could present her with the opportunity to tell her side of the story. Jack was adamant that they approach this with empathy and understanding, rather than simply condemn her actions. Karen is my wife, and as much as her behavior was unacceptable, I still care about her, Jack explained. I think if we give her a chance to explain herself and acknowledge the impact of her actions, she may be more receptive to making amends. Alex nodded in agreement. That's a fair point. We don't want this to become a public shaming session. Our goal is to hold her accountable, but also provide her with a chance to learn and grow from this experience. Amir, who had been a bit more skeptical of the plan, finally spoke up. And what if she doesn't cooperate? What if she just lashes out again, like she did in my shop? Jack placed a reassuring hand on the tailor's shoulder. We'll be prepared for that possibility. Alex and I will make sure you're protected, and we'll keep the focus on finding a constructive solution rather than engaging in another confrontation. Amr still looked unconvinced, but he nodded reluctantly. All right, I'll trust you on this. But the moment she starts acting up again, I'm out. With the plan in place, the trio set out to arrange the meeting with Karen. It took some persuasion, but ultimately, she agreed to sit down and hear them out, albeit with a clear air of skepticism. As they gathered in a neutral location, the tension in the room was palpable. Karen eyed the three men warily, her arms crossed defensively over her chest. All right, I'm here, she said, her tone clipped. What is this all about? Jack took a deep breath and launched into an explanation, carefully outlining the events that had transpired at Amir's shop and the impact of her behavior. Karen, I know you were upset about the delay with your suit, but the way you treated Amir was unacceptable, Jack said, his voice calm but firm. He was dealing with a family emergency, and he tried to communicate that to you, but you refused to listen. Karen's brow furrowed, and for a moment, Alex thought he saw a flicker of remorse in her eyes. I didn't know about the family emergency, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Amir, who had been silent up until this point, leaned forward. That's the problem, Karen. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. You just came in, yelling and threatening my business, without any regard for what I was going through. Karen's gaze shifted to the tailor, and her expression softened slightly. I'm sorry. I didn't realize the impact my actions would have on you. I was just so focused on getting the suit done on time, and I let my frustration get the better of me. Alex couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this meeting was having the desired effect after all. Karen, we're not here to condemn you, Jack said, reaching out to take his wife's hand. We just want to help you understand the consequences of your behavior and find a way to make amends. Karen's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she nodded. I want to make this right. I don't want to be the kind of person who treats others that way, especially when they're going through a difficult time. Amr let out a relieved sigh, and Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They had managed to navigate this delicate situation with care and compassion, and it seemed to be paying off. As the meeting drew to a close, the four individuals stood together, united in their newfound understanding and a shared commitment to growth and change. Thank you, all of you, Karen said, her voice sincere. I have a lot of work to do, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn from this experience. With that, they parted ways, each taking a moment to reflect on the journey they had just been through. A journey that had not only exposed the ugly side of entitlement, but also the power of empathy, understanding, and the willingness to change.